Check this out, BCM Raider here, bringing you another Commander deck tech, and today we are looking at Karador, Ghost Chieftain. We're in the Abzan colors, and our primary focus is going to be a Abzan Reanimator build, where we're going to capitalize on bringing back as many powerful creatures from our graveyard as possible. Karador himself will cost 1 colorless less to cast for each creature card in our graveyard, and every single turn we can cast one of those creatures. So let's get right into this. First up is Hermit Druid. This is going to be our main driving force to put as many cards into our graveyard as possible. With his activated ability, we reveal cards from the top of our library until we reveal a basic land. We put the basic land into our hand, and everything else is put into our graveyard. Next, we have Viscera Seer. He's going to be our main way to sacrifice creatures to put them back into the graveyard so we can keep recasting them. We're going to do this by scrying. That way we know exactly what our top card is going to be. Next, we have Fauna Shaman. She's going to do a very good job at discarding creature cards to go get whatever creature we need. That way we can set up certain turns, or if we need a certain creature to do a certain thing on that turn, we can just go and get it with Fauna Shaman. Next, we got a fun one. We have Fiend Artisan. Fiend Artisan will get +1/+1 for each creature card that's in our graveyard, but his activated ability, we're going to pay 1 green and then X. Then we're going to sacrifice another creature. Then we can search our library for any creature with that mana value and put it onto the battlefield. So not only are we getting the creature we want, we're also getting death triggers by sacrificing. Next, we have Sir Conrad the Grim. Sir Conrad is kind of like a staple in any kind of aristocrats or graveyard strategy, because whenever any other creature dies, or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere, or leaves the graveyard, he'll deal 1 damage to each opponent. And if we need to, we can pay a colorless and a black. Each player will mill the top card. Next, we have Dockside Chef. This is a personal favorite of mine as a great way to draw cards and sacrifice creatures, because we're going to activate them, sacrifice an artifact or a creature to draw a card. Next, we have Spore Frog. This is going to be a very good way to prevent our opponents from attacking us, because chances are we're just going to sacrifice Spore Frog, prevent all that combat damage, and then just keep bringing Spore Frog back over and over. Next, we have Luminous Broodmoth. This has a static effect. Whenever any creature without flying is put into a graveyard, we get to return it back to the battlefield as a flying creature. Next, we have Sakura Tribe Elder, or Steve. Good old Steve. He'll sacrifice himself to go search for a basic land and put it on the battlefield. Next, we're going to control our opponent's graveyard with Scavenging Ooze. We're going to pay 1 green, exile any card from any graveyard, and if it was a creature card, we get to put a +1 counter on Scavenging Ooze, and we gain a life. Now, to deal with our opponent's artifacts or enchantments, we have Haywire Might. Just when Haywire Might is put into a graveyard, we're going to gain 2 life, but we're going to activate him, sacrifice himself, then we get to exile target non-creature artifact or non-creature enchantment. Now, in case we need to bring back anything from our graveyard back to our hand that we can continually keep discarding, or just protect from our opponents, we have Eternal Witness. When she enters the battlefield, we get to return any card from our graveyard back to our hand. So we have Sad Robot, or Solemn Simulacrum. When he enters the battlefield, we get to search for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped, and if Solemn would be put into a graveyard, we get to draw a card. Now we got a fun one. We have Body Launderer. But whenever another non-token creature we control is put into a graveyard, we get to Connive. Whenever Body Launderer himself is put into a graveyard, another target non-rogue creature with equal or lesser power will be brought back from our graveyard back to the battlefield. Now we have good old Acidic Slime. This is a 2/2 with Death Touch. When it enters the battlefield, we can destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land. Now we have good old Grave Titan. This one is very good at entering the battlefield and creating even more sacrifice fodder for us, just when it enters or when it attacks. It's also a 6/6 with Death Touch, so it blocks really well. Now we have my personal favorite, with the DC Undead Vizier. This is a 4/6 with Death Touch, but it also has Exploit. When it enters the battlefield, we can sacrifice a creature, and if we did, we get to search our library for any card and put it into our hand. This is a demonic tutor with legs. Now we have Ravenous Chupacabra. When this enters the battlefield, we get to destroy target creature a opponent controls. Now we have Demon's Disciple. When he enters the battlefield, each player will sacrifice a creature or planeswalker. Next we have Karmic Guide. This does have an echo. At the beginning of our next upkeep, we have to pay its echo cost or we sacrifice it. But when Karmic Guide enters the battlefield, we get to return any creature card from our graveyard back to the battlefield. I know there's some kind of combo potential with other creatures, but this is just primarily here just to return any creature from our graveyard back to the battlefield. Now we have Reclamation Sage. She's going to enter, then we get to destroy target artifact or enchantment. Now we have Grim Haruspex. Most of these creatures are going to trigger when they enter the battlefield or check to see if any other creature goes to the graveyard or enters the battlefield. With Grim Haruspex, whenever another non-token creature we control is put into a graveyard, we get to draw a card. Next, we have good old Gary, or Great Merchant of Asphodel. When he enters the battlefield, each opponent is going to lose X life, where X is our devotion to black, and then we gain life equal to the life that was lost this way. We're going to gain a whole bunch of life with this card, and he can become a win condition if we keep reanimating him over and over. Next we have Wood Elves. When we need to just go get any forest card and put it on the battlefield. Now we have Gravebreaker Lamia. This is a 4/4 with lifelink, and when it enters the battlefield, we get to search our library for any card and put that card into our graveyard. But more importantly, spells we cast from our graveyard will cost 1 colorless less. So he's a cost reduction for all these creatures that we're going to be able to cast from our graveyard. Now we have Playcrafter. When he enters the battlefield, each player will sacrifice a creature or a planeswalker, and if a player can't sacrifice, they have to discard. Now we have Angel of Finality. When this enters the battlefield, we get to exile all cards from target player's graveyard. This is going to be a good way to control our opponent's graveyard. Now we have Sun Titan. When this enters the battlefield or attacks, we can return any permanent with mana cost 3 or less from our graveyard to the battlefield. This could be a smaller costed creature, such as Spore Frog, or if we need to, we can return lands with Sun Titan. Okay, let's get into the very large creatures that we're going to want to reanimate over and over. So we have Ao the Dawn Sky. Most of these dragon spirits that came out of the Kamigawa set are going to be very good in reanimator decks because we're just going to sacrifice them off, get their triggers, and actually go wild. But Ao the Dawn Sky, when he's put into a graveyard, we can choose one of different abilities. We can either look at the top 7 cards of our library and put any number of non-land permanents from among those with total mana value 4 or less onto the battlefield, or we can put 2+1 counters on each permanent that's a creature or vehicle. Now we have Yosei, the Morning Star. This is a 5/5 with flying, and when it's put into the graveyard, target player is going to skip their next untap step, and we get to tap up to 5 target permanents. This is going to be very good to really lock down our opponents from ever untapping anything if we keep reanimating Yosei. Now we have Junji, the Midnight Sky. This is a 5/5 with flying and menace, and when it's put into a graveyard, we can choose one. We can either force each opponent to discard 2 cards and lose 2 life, or we can put any non-dragon creature card from our graveyard onto the battlefield, and we lose 2 life. Next, we have Kokosho the Evening Star. This is the All-Star. When he's put into a graveyard, each opponent is going to lose 5 life, and we're going to gain the life equal to the life that was lost. We're going to be gaining a lot more life, and we're just going to keep reanimating him over and over. That way our opponents lose as much life as possible. Next, we have a personal favorite of mine with Archon of Cruelty. This one is absolutely insane. It's probably the best reanimation target. When he enters the battlefield or attacks, each opponent will sacrifice a creature or planeswalker, discard a card, and lose 3 life. We get to draw a card and gain 3 life. Now, we have Ashen Rider. When he's put into a graveyard, we get to exile target permanent. But we're going to keep sacrificing him to exile permanents and keep bringing them back over and over. I'm starting to see a theme here. Hopefully you guys do too. Now we have good old Avenger of Zendikar. He's just a very efficient creature. When he enters the battlefield, we're going to get an 0/1 green plant for each land we control. And then whenever lands enter the battlefield, all those plants will get +1 counters. He's going to do a very good job at building a very large board state, but also provide a whole bunch of sacrifice fodder in case we need it. Now we have Angel of Despair. When she enters the battlefield, we get to destroy target permanent. And of course, we have Protean Hulk. When Protean Hulk is put into a graveyard, we get to search our library for any number of creature cards with converted mana cost 6 or less total and put them straight onto the battlefield. He's going to do a very good job at going and grabbing a bunch of small creatures or one very large creature. We do have one planeswalker that's really going to help us out. He's probably my favorite planeswalker in any kind of reanimation strategy. So we have Grist the Hunger Tide. He's going to enter with 3 loyalty counters on him. And as long as Grist the Hunger Tide is not on the battlefield, he'll be a creature in addition to its other types. So if Grist the Hunger Tide is in your graveyard, he'll be a creature that you can reanimate. But we're going to +1 him. We're going to create a 1/1 black and green insect token. And then we mill a card. And if that milled card happened to be an insect, most of the time it's not. We get to put a loyalty counter on Grist, and we repeat this process. Or we can -2. We can sacrifice a creature to destroy another target creature or planeswalker. You can even target your own creatures to put them back into the graveyard to keep recasting them again. That's a little fun trick I like to do. Or -5, each opponent will lose life equal to the number of creatures that are in our graveyard. Okay, let's get into the artifacts. We only have 3 artifacts because our primary focus is on creatures, but we do have Soul Ring, our Arcane Signet, and Chromatic Lantern. The Chromatic Lantern will ensure that we can produce the color we need. Okay, let's get into the enchantments. We only have 4, but they're really going to help us out by bringing back creatures or allowing us to draw cards. Of course, we have Animate Dead. We get to put any creature from any graveyard into play under our control. We have my personal favorite with Grey Pact. This has a static effect. Whenever any creature we control is put into a graveyard, each opponent will sacrifice a creature. Similar to that, we have Dictate of Erebos. This is the same exact card, except Dictate has Flash. Now we have Greater Good. This is going to be very beneficial for us because not only do we get to sacrifice a creature, but we get to draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power. Then we discard 3 cards. So if the creature we sacrifice happened to be a very high-powered creature, we're going to draw that many cards, and then we're going to put the cards we want to reanimate back into our graveyard. Okay, let's get into the instants. Probably the best one in the entire deck is Entomb. We're going to search our library for any card and put that card into our graveyard. Now we have Village Rites. As an additional cost, we do have to sacrifice a creature, but we get to draw 2 cards. Now we got some removal, so we have Despark. We get to exile any permanent with mana cost 4 or greater. Now we have Utter End. We get to exile target non-land permanent. Most of these permanents that we're going to exile are the ones that are going to prevent us from bringing stuff back from our graveyard, such as Rest in Peace or any other kind of graveyard hate. We need to get rid of immediately. Now we have Anguish Unmaking. We're going to exile target non-land permanent, and we lose 3 life. Protecting your graveyard in this kind of strategy is pretty much your primary focus. Okay, let's get into the sorceries. So, of course, we have Diabolic Intent. As an additional cost, we sacrifice a creature, but we get to search our library for any card, and this is a built-in Demonic Tutor with a sacrifice effect. Now we have my personal favorite with Life from the Loam. Life from the Loam is going to do a very good job every single turn at putting the most amount of cards in our graveyard. And when we actually cast Life from the Loam, we get to return any 3 lands back to our hand. This does have Dredge 3. Because Dredge is a replacement effect, anytime we draw a card, we mill whatever the Dredge cost is. And then we return Life from the Loam back to our hand. Now we have Buried Alive. We get to search our library for 3 creatures and put them into our graveyard. Now we have Eldritch Evolution. As an additional cost, we do have to sacrifice a creature, but we get to search our library for a creature card with converted mana cost X or less, where X is 2 plus the sacrificed creature's mana cost. And that creature is put onto the battlefield. Now we have my other personal favorite with Reanimate. It's in the name. Reanimate target creature. Then we lose life equal to that card's mana cost. Now we have Exhume. Each player will reanimate a creature. Chances are our opponents aren't going to have any creatures in their graveyard early on, but we will. And this is a very fast way to get our very large creatures from our graveyard into play way faster than our opponents. Now we have Victimize. We get to choose 2 target creatures in our graveyard. Then we get to sacrifice a creature. And if we did, we return those 2 creatures from our graveyard back to the battlefield tapped. Now we have Dread Return. We get to return any creature from our graveyard back to the battlefield. This does have flashback, so we can recast it again by sacrificing 3 creatures. Now we have Unburial Rites. We get to return any creature from our graveyard back to the battlefield. This also has flashback as well. Now we have Eerie Ultimatum. We get to return any number of permanents with different names from our graveyard back to the battlefield. This is going to do a very good job at returning the most amount of things from our graveyard to the battlefield in one shot. Now we have some mass removal. So we have Living Death. If we filled our graveyard with a bunch of creatures, we get to exile all those creatures from our graveyard. Then every single player will sacrifice all the creatures they control, and all the creatures that were exiled go onto the battlefield. Now we have Damn. This can be a targeted spot removal just by paying 2 black, or if you pay its overload cost of 2 colorless and 2 white, it becomes a Wrath of God. Or Damnation. Same card. Now we have Austere Command. We get to choose 2 if we really need to. We can destroy all artifacts, destroy all enchantments, destroy all creatures with mana cost 3 or less, or destroy all creatures with power 4 or greater. Depending on the current board state will determine what you guys choose. Now we have Merciless Eviction. We can choose to exile all artifacts, all creatures, or all enchantments, or all planeswalkers. Most of the time, we're not going to choose creatures because we don't want to exile our creatures. Most of the time, there's artifacts and enchantments that just have to go away, such as Rest in Peace. But I'll leave it up to you guys. Okay, let's get into the land base. This is a very straightforward land base, as they usually are. So we have our command tower, our mana confluence. That way we can add whatever color we need. We have Overgrown Tomb, Godless Shrine, and Temple Garden. Now we have our Surveil lands. The Surveil lands I feel are better in any kind of graveyard strategy over fetch lands. For the most part, this is a pretty stock budget list. So we have Shadowy Backstreet, Underground Mortuary, and Lush Portico. We do have a couple Battlebond lands. So we have Vault of Champions and Undergrowth Stadium. Now we have our check lands. So we have Woodland Cemetery, Isolated Chapel, and Sun Petal Grove. Now we have some utility lands. So we have Phyrexian Tower. This is going to allow us to sacrifice a creature for 2 black mana. Now we got a fun one. We have Iganjo's Seat of the Empire. This has Channel, so we can pay 2 colorless and a white and discard this to deal 4 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. And this ability will cost 1 colorless less for each legendary creature we control. Now we have Myriad Landscape to go get 2 basics. Now we have Terramorphic Expanse and Evolving Wilds. Now we have another fun one. We have Gavany Township. We're going to use this to put +1 counters on each creature we control. That way we can make our creatures even bigger. Now we have Strip Mine. That way we can go destroy whatever land we really need to. We have 6 swamps, 5 plains, and 4 forests. And that was the Commander deck for Karador, Ghost Chieftain. I really hope you guys enjoyed this Abzan Reanimator deck. Graveyard decks and Reanimator type strategies have always been very popular, and they're kind of a personal favorite of mine. But I want to hear from you guys. If you guys have any suggestions, let me know. But until next time, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share these videos. I'll leave the link to the Moxfield deck list for this build, and I'll see you guys in the next one.